Hello. Oh yeah, like I said, unfortunately I can't be there in person today. I imagine this would have been a lot more fun in person, but hopefully we get a bit of value out of this, and I can give you a cool talk. Hopefully you enjoy it. So without further ado, we shall share my screen, the magic of Zoom. Hang on. Okay, looks like that's coming through. So this is my talk on physical security called Let's Get Physical. I'm Warren Houghton. I'm a social engineer and covert entry specialist. I work for Pentest Partners, or PTP as known. So who am I? I've been in the industry for about, well, physical security wise, for about 15 years now. 6 years of which I've been specialised in covert entry. I've broken into roughly 40 buildings, and I've never failed to get in, and I've never been caught. And I'm just here to tell you basically how we make that possible, how you can stop us getting in, how you can stop the physical attack actually happening. And I have a certain love for access control systems. The little card systems that open your doors is my thing. So my general question about physical security and security in general, why would I hack your network if I can just steal your server? A lot of people invest an awful lot of money in AV and EDR and all these fancy stuff that you put onto your network. But I can just walk in and I can unplug your server and walk off site with it. And we're just here to look at what sort of impact that might have to you. So with the magic of amazing PowerPoint animation, general attacker would want to go through your external firewall, your router, any EDR, XYZ, and eventually try to get to your crown jewels in your network. And this takes a lot of skill. You've got some incredibly skilled red teams out there that can make this look easy. Unfortunately, I'm not quite that skilled in cyber, but my thing is, why would I do that? For me, it's a lot easier to just walk around and keylog your PCs, keylog your servers if you so see fit, and just log in manually myself. I bypass any phishing links, I bypass any of that, and I can just get onto your network. You don't have to work in Fort Knox to make this reality, to stop this happening. You don't have to have big men with big guns at your front door to stop someone breaking into your building. A lot of these things can be combated with very simple techniques, very simple things that everyone in your organization can do and should be instilled into your staff members to help combat this sort of attack. There's buildings are generally, with the omission of aforementioned Fort Knox, are generally designed and built to let people in. They let the right people in, but they are built and designed to just let people in if you're allowed to be in. Obviously, with small exceptions, prisons, they're built to keep people out, I guess. An attacker aims to emulate this. An attacker will aim to get into your building the way you get into the building. No building is truly secure if it lets people in. Obviously, there's like data centers, which are a different beast. We can get onto them later if you want to talk to me. But generally, if you let people in, then there's always going to be a risk to the wrong person getting in. So, how do we break into a bank? I get this question asked a lot, as much as it's not really much hanging from the ceilings like this picture. It's like I'm not Mission Impossible or anything like that. Generally, it's not as hard as you might think. So we're going to go into that. So a long time ago, you don't make it easy for the attacker. A lot of people do, especially in the United Kingdom, we're generally, touch wood, generally quite polite. You see someone struggling, you will hold open the door. Now, this is a very old attack. We all know this. This is tailgating, but people still do it. We still break into buildings, and this is a very easy way in. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily give persistence. We can't go in anytime we want. But generally, if there's someone that will happily hold open the door for us, then happy days, we're into your building. The impact of that, obviously, we'll go into a little bit later in this presentation. But yeah, you can imagine the impact of if you just let someone in your building. The thing I'm generally interested in a techie hacker sort of mentality is your cards. So this is where I specialize. This is what I refer to as the passwords to your building. It's your single biggest token of trust you have for a member of staff. And having it shows you are immediately trustworthy and you stand out as a member of staff. Say, as an attacker, if I have the correct lanyard, if I have the correct pass design, if I have any of these things, you generally don't even need to see me or don't even need to know me to trust me implicitly. These should be protected as much as your password to your network, in my opinion. Unfortunately, everyone seems to wear them in public. They're quite happy to walk around. You just need to walk around in London, down Liverpool Street or anywhere really, and you'll see hundreds of people walking around with this password hanging around their neck. Now, some are secure, some are not so secure. Some are good, some are bad. Um, all we need in order to make this token of trust is effective. It needs to look the same and it needs to act the same. So with a picture, we can quite happily make a forge, etc. With a scan, which hopefully I can potentially do a demo over Zoom. That won't work quite as well as if I was in person, but I'll give it my best later on in this presentation. So we can have a look at that. People seem to love, even if you don't walk down the street, people seem to love putting these passes on the internet. You see it all the time, especially, I mean, this is a well-known online retailer starting with the big A. They put their passes online a lot. It's like, okay, yes, new job, amazing, congratulations, here's my pass, brilliant. Well, I've now got a very clear picture of your pass, very clear, and I can make a forgery off of that. And instantly I've got 50% of my token of trust. Easy. This Twitter handle, or X handle, if they call it now, is something you don't want to appear on. This effectively makes a habit of just picking out the worst passes that appear online, and they retweet them. And it's really handy for an attacker. This is where your organization does not want to be. If your pass ends up on this Twitter, well, sorry, X, then it's probably not great. And it's usually a very clear pass. And with this, like this Microsoft one on the right, we can very easily make a forgery off of this. Forgeries, quite easy to make. Generally, once you've got a very clear picture, all it takes is one good picture, and that is enough. We get a decent picture of it, we can create layers and then create a very believable forgery off of this picture. Now, this picture, like aforementioned, can be gained in the street if you don't take off your badge, can be gained online if you simply put a picture on social media or anything online is obviously in the public domain. It can be found, even if it's on corporate media. This generally can be found if it's linked to any online services. So along came a company many years ago saying, gave the idea of access controls. This is where you walk up to the building, you scan your card on a little reader, and the door will open for you. Yeah, as we've mentioned, it's effectively your password to the door. So a forgery won't open the door for you. Once you're in, obviously it provides a level of trust if it's seen, but it won't open the door for you. The attacker, in my opinion, needs to be able to open the door. So an access control system, like we said, is effectively the one where you walk up to a reader, you go beep, and it'll open the door. Now, there are good ways of doing this, and there are bad ways of doing this, like anything. And this is very literally your password to the door. It's your password should be encrypted at rest, as we all know, but generally your cards are not. Like some of them are, but it's very rare. Or some of them are encrypted at rest with a known encryption key, which is bad, and we can exploit this very easily. Your reader on the outside of your building is considered public information. It's considered out in the public. Obviously, it's on the external of your building. There's not much you can do to stop someone looking at this reader. With a picture of this reader, quite happily, you can look online. You can see what cards this reader will support. There are many many different card technologies out there, and some readers support some do not. Some are vulnerable, some are not. This is Paxton Reader. You probably see this an awful lot. FYI, these are heavily vulnerable. And with the knowledge of this, we know exactly what tokens are available on your reader. And we know as an attacker that you are going to be using one of these cards, because otherwise it would not read on that reader. We can get an attack that would work against this and walk into the street and clone your badge. Shared keys are a thing. So talk about encryption on cards, data at rest a minute ago. So a lot of readers, an awful lot of readers, encrypt this data with a shared key. This is a large reader called an a R90 reader. They're massive car park readers, effectively. And what this is, is like a normal HID reader, which you might see with a little light bar at the top. But it will read cards at about a foot. And this is encoded with the same shared key as any other HID reader, which is very handy to an attacker. Obviously, sometimes you don't necessarily need to even know the key. You just need to be in control of something that does. And readers like this exist, and we should all be aware. This is used heavily. I use this quite a lot because it supports a card technology known as iClass, which we can go on to. And this is still heavily used and heavily vulnerable to cloning attacks, and will read it at roughly about a foot in an instant read range, and get all the authentication data off of your card and everything as an attacker needs in order to make a clone to open your door. And realistically, for £350, I mean, this was just one on eBay a while ago. They're roughly this much money. That's a small price to pay for an attacker to have persistent access to your building. Obviously, this also lets us walk in with this and privilege escalate once we're in the building. Maybe I can't get access to the data center with the person that wore their badge outside, but I might be able to once I break in and walk past your IT guy. So, a little story time. How easily can it all go wrong for an organization? So, we had a new starter. You might recognize Mr. Keanu Reeves. He's very excited to start at PTP. And he mistakenly put this picture on Instagram. He absolutely. And you see in this picture, obviously, there's a nice picture of his pass and a lovely picture of that reader on the right. Now, obviously, that's not our real pass. I'm just going to point out, if you can make a forge if you want, but it's not really the PTP badge, and that's not really the PTP reader either. It's just for demo purposes, obviously. But what can we see in this picture? Obviously, this one picture will give an attacker an awful lot of information. Obviously, we've spoken about the pass, but also the lanyard. He's got a custom lanyard, or, well, not a blank lanyard, effectively. With this, obviously, we know what lanyard to pick. We know what he dresses like. We know if we need to wear a suit. Obviously, there are some places in London, you go to all the banks, then generally a lot of people wear suits or shirts. If you turn up in a jeans and hoodie, you're probably going to stand out. We have the reader. Well, look, we can look at the data sheet and see what cards this reader supports. With that, we can gain a picture of what your system looks like and attack your system. Address confirmation. I mean, this is, just PTP, obviously, but like if there's a number, cool. We know exactly what door we need to go into. There's no, going on Street View or potentially your website is out of date. This is confirmation that we may need. There's no privacy glass. Obviously, it's kind of hard to see through there because it's a bit reflective, but yeah, no privacy glass. So what happens if I just walk past you? Can I see you type in a password? Can I record it, slow it down, have a look at this password as you type it in? We know the door lock. Obviously, is this locked out of hours? We don't know, but we have to assume it is. Can this be picked? What level of security is this lock? We have all this information. There's a letterbox, handy. We can, if it's locked from the inside, maybe with a thumb turn, we can reach through this letterbox with a tool and turn that thumb turn and get access in. And this letterbox will give us a nice way in. And this is more for government departments. He's wearing a smartwatch. So there's clearly no monitoring of RF. There's clearly no Wi-Fi sort of issues on this site. We can walk in, we can maybe drop a Dropbox or have a 3G dongle in a Dropbox, and it's not going to get picked up with any monitoring software. So, silly Mr. Keanu Reeves uploaded this picture to Instagram. With this picture, generally it was clear enough to make a convincing pass forgery. And like I say, we only need one decent picture in order to make a convincing forge. I made this. Obviously, I made everything, but I made this. We got it was just a generic staff lanyard, and with this one picture, we made a convincing forge. So if we were stopped, then there'll be something to back us up. It's also obviously same. Sorry, I just got to take a drink. My throat is harsh. So he also happened to upload a lovely picture of this reader. So I've got a weirdly encyclopedic knowledge of readers. I've been looking at these for a long time, but I know that is a HID SER10 reader. We see these about everywhere. You probably see them on many, many buildings and never really paid them much attention. These can be secure, but they can be very insecure. It really depends on how you configure them. We have to, as an attacker, would have to assume that you've configured it well until proven otherwise. We have to assume that EDR is going to catch us until proven otherwise, and that's obviously called OPSEC. We have to imagine that you're on your A game and we are noobs. Now, this reader, like everything else, reads a multitude of card technologies. So I'm not going to sit here and bore you and explain all of these, but some of these are very good and some of these are very bad. Some of these can be cloned and some of these cannot. This is where, as an attacker, we would have to attempt to clone each one or go from the most likely and see where it gets us. So along comes the bigger brother of the R10, the R90. So this is what's called the long range reader. It's effectively exactly the same. It's the same technology. It's the same reader in almost every way. It's just a lot bigger, and it reads cards at, like I said earlier, about a foot. So we can strap a battery onto this quite happily. I've got one behind me, and I'm going to attempt to do a demo of this in a minute. We'll see how that goes. And strap a battery onto this, and we can walk down the street with this in a backpack and walk past you maybe you don't take off a badge when you go to Tesco or Co-op or whatever, and you pick up your sandwich. Have you ever thought about the person that might have to push past you to look at that sandwich that is next to you? This is where we can easily clone a badge. I've done it. It's very reliable, and nobody ever really notices it. If we clone it away from the building, it will massively reduce the risk of being caught because you're away from your building. You're at a reduced threat. Like you don't think you're going to get attacked when you go pick up a sandwich. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case. So pray for me. This might work. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to stop sharing. Oh no, not that one actually. Hello again. This is my face again. And we're going to give this a go. Why can't? This is where it all goes wrong. Never do live demos, they said, didn't they? That's the rule. Right. I have no idea how well you can see this. This would have worked so much better in person if it wasn't for the fog. But on the right here, effectively, we have the monitor of the reader. They've got an R90 behind me, and I'll show you on camera in a minute of this working. And on the right here, we've got something called the Proxmark client. Now, the Proxmark is a tool which effectively can read, write, and generally do a lot of hacky things with a lot of different card technologies. And we're going to be using these. So, okay, we're going to see how this goes. Apologies. So, behind me, I've got the R90. and on the right I've got a demo access control system, right? It's enrolled with multiple different cards, and this is to imitate a building access control system, which I can run a lot of attacks on. It's what I use for debbing a lot of attacks for different things. And here I've got a badge. I mean, this is just the one I made of me with a rainbow lanyard, because who questions a rainbow lanyard in 2024? And this, I don't know whether that green light comes on. It went green, unsure if it worked, if you can see that, but that opens the door. Now, as an attacker, I've got this card that does not open the door. Silly member of staff walks down the street, doesn't know they're being followed by an attacker. This reader, I don't know how well this is going to come through, but that was about a foot. I don't know whether anyone saw the green light. I'm sort of clutching at straws here, trying to do a demo because it's really fun. And at about a foot range, that read your card. That was instantly as quick as you would read it on a wall reader. This would read it in person, and it would read it through your bag, through your pocket. If I know where your card is, it can read your card, period. So we're going to go back to sharing my screen, and I'll show you what the logs say. So hopefully you can see this. Looks like you can. Maybe it's big enough. So we refresh this. This is connected to the big reader behind me. The big reader behind me is giving off a little Wi-Fi access point, and all it's doing is hoovering up all the cards I'm reading. Now, this is not by any means a crazy elite brand new attack. This has been well known for well over a decade now, and this is a card technology which is still widely used in the industry. The access control systems are generally, they're put in and they're not looked at for like 20 years because they're assumed to be secure. We see it all the time, and technology moves on like everything, and eventually they become very insecure, but they're very expensive to replace. I'm very aware of that. So this little bit here, I'm going to try and zoom in, but there's a crazy bit of ones and zeros here, and that's effectively your password to the door. So what this has done is I've read a card. This is encrypted, this card, with a shared key, and that key is known by that reader and is known by everyone. And this data I'm showing you now is its decrypted form. It's gone through the decryption and everything like that. The reader's handled all that. I don't need to know the decryption data or the decryption key to know your data. I just need to copy this. With this, I can quite happily write that to another card. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to be using Proxmark. It is a public tool that you can get at Proxmark for about £40. There are loads on eBay, there are loads on AliExpress. They all effectively do the same thing. So this is very well documented, and that's the point I want to try and make. This is not some behind the shadows sort of attack. This is very well known. And what I can do here is take your password, take your authentication data, and put it on the card, and I can encrypt it with the key which is known. That's what this --KI0 does, and that's effectively using the pre-shared key which is known in public and putting it on the card. And with this, we shall attempt to use this card, and if I've done it right, this will open the door. And it did. Quite happy. Now, that wasn't a difficult attack. That wasn't a crazy next level hacker attack. That was a very simple card clone, and that is still widely used. So we'll see. That's the long way around. Sometimes I hate technology, guys. I'm not gonna lie. There we go. Right. So that sort of went well. The way the demo in my mind I had it was a colleague of mine, Kate, who was going to be joining me. She would be wearing the badge, and effectively, the demo would be me walking past her and cloning it off of her to display how easy that would be. Now, that doesn't work very well over Zoom, but hopefully you've learned something. So you've got card clone, you've got a believable forge, you've got all these things. You're in the building. Um, so what next? It works on. You are a trusted member of staff for all intents and purposes. It just nobody knows you. Uh, what happens now? Well, quite happy. We can put a keylogger down. These are 30, £40 off of Amazon. They still work. They're quite simple pieces of kit. I know they're very much a sort of Mr. Robot sort of thing, but they still work. And it's still an attack that is a viable attack for us. Put a keylogger down, wait for a day or two, come back, retrieve it, get access to all your logs, and the red team can do it remotely. If you're on O365 or whatever, or I can log in, get a beacon out to a red team and carry on a cyber attack remotely and bypass any need for phishing, and also get to somebody that potentially has enough privileges to give the red team exactly what they want. Just put a Dropbox down. Maybe you haven't got network access control enabled. Maybe there's no 802.1x with certs, and I can just put a Dropbox down, and again, the red team or cyber attacks can carry on remotely. There's no need. If I don't have to be in your building to attack you, I won't. But sometimes it's a lot easier to. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I've spent loads of money. I've got an EDR. I've got AV. I've got 24-hour SOC. Good for you. Good for you. Like it's really good. It won't stop me. It's like I will always get in. It's about catching you. Like there's generally no EDR that will catch someone physically. You pay a lot of money for security teams, obviously, um, but they're not. There's no pressure to really care, and that's what we usually see. I usually hear, "Oh, but I've got nothing to steal. I've migrated to the cloud. I am safe from physical breach." Um, yeah, maybe, but I can still keylog you. I can still get all these things, and potentially, if you haven't got MFA enabled, get into your cloud. Or paperwork is still a thing. People still feel the need to print out sensitive information and put it in these little confidential bins, which rarely have a good lock on them. They are usually what's called a little tumbler lock, which is very simple and can be trivially picked in usually under 10 seconds. And this is pre-shredding, pre-everything, and we can just walk away with all your documents. Now, how bad could that be for the environment, for your organization? Sometimes you don't even need to raid through the bin. A lot of people just put them on shelves. Brilliant. Maybe you don't lock your cabinets, and I can walk in and just take all your paperwork. Now, that's a physical breach. It doesn't matter about cloud. Maybe all your board meetings. So these are sometimes not done over Teams. Obviously, people talk about very important things in board meetings. What happens if I was to bug these? How much of an impact would that have on your stock price if I was to reveal some information all over Twitter about you a day before you made a huge deal? Would that be an impact? Potentially. There's always more stuff. So maybe you're not the main target. Maybe they've gone through you because, or somebody else, because you're multi-occupancy. You rent a space in an office building, and you trust your building to secure you in a effective way. Maybe your neighbor is a lot easier to breach than you. Now, the building outside of your control, not the building's your control, is considered public. Even if behind a barrier, if it's not your barrier, it is a public area, and it should be considered so. So, are there any key safes in this building? So, can we access to key safes? Can we steal anyone's car? Can we get access to CCTV? Can we monitor you in a weird, creepy way? Like a lot of these things are viable attacks. Can we tap or proxy all your network? Obviously, that's a bit more difficult, but it's not impossible. And unfortunately, some people just want to watch the world burn. Um, there are activists out there that will break in, and they just want to cause carnage to your organization. Unfortunately, AV doesn't help this. BitLocker, EDR doesn't help. if somebody takes an axe or a hammer to your server, how much of an impact would that have to your organization? And shockingly, in summary, I believe there's always an impact to a business or cyber resilience from a physical breach. So with public information, an attacker can emulate your member of staff, open your door, bypass any network controls you may have. Don't make it easy for them, obviously. Don't open the door for them. That's you might feel like a real meanie by not opening the door for someone with crutches, but you don't truly know uh, if they're not an attacker. Obviously, if they're your colleague and you really do know, then obviously that's a very different story. Um, but everyone has a part to play in a physical security. It's not just up to the security guards, it's up to every member of staff to challenge somebody. And unfortunately, a physical attacker doesn't look like this. They're not going to walk into your building wearing a balaclava. They're not going to walk into your data center wearing black and going, okay, and highlighting themselves as an attacker. They're going to look like you. They're going to act like you. They're going to have a badge that possibly works. They're going to have a badge that looks good. And it's up to you to go, I don't recognize that. So I know this has been possibly a bit doom and gloom, saying I can break into your buildings and there's nothing you can do to stop me. It's not all that bad. There is plenty you can do to stop. Right? There are plenty you can do that would actively stop me getting into a building. So here are Warren's top tips on how you stop a physical security attack from being truly effective. Now, this doesn't mitigate every risk, but it will massively reduce it, in my opinion. Number one, be mindful of what you put online. I know you're excited. You've started a new job. Don't put your pass online. Similarly, don't put you wouldn't put your keys online if you just moved to a new house. I know people do, but that's effectively your password to your door. Don't put it online. This goes for social media, blogs, corporate websites, anything online is considered public, and it is available to anyone that you don't know who's going to get that information. Please, oh please, take your passes off in public. Now, you wouldn't walk around in public with a post-it note saying my password is password 123. I mean, please don't have a password of password 123, but you wouldn't do that. Having your pass in public is effectively the same. This can be seen by an attacker. This can be read by an attacker. This can be photographed by an attacker. And if you're in a multi-occupancy building, obviously it may put other occupants at risk. Now, not necessarily that's your risk, but it is something to consider. Please take your passes off before you leave your secure area. Obviously, once you leave your secure area, you are in public. Encourage your staff to challenge. So this is a very difficult mentality to instill in staff members. There's a lot of people that are worried about HR cases for challenging the wrong people. That shouldn't be the case. It really shouldn't. If there is somebody that you don't recognize, that you don't believe should be there or is acting weirdly, challenge them. And this isn't a case of, you don't have to hold them up against the wall and say, tell me your secrets. It's a lot of the case is just small conversation. Oh, how long have you worked here? Oh, who do you work under? What team are you? Who's your line manager? These simple things that a true member of staff will know, and a ill-prepared attacker will not. Invest in effective security systems. So the amount of people that don't invest fully in their access control systems is incredible. There are a lot of people that truly believe they are secure until proven otherwise. There are a lot of people that go, oh, I didn't know my pass could be cloned. Oh, I didn't know there was a blind spot in my CCTV. I didn't know that, my guards, I needed 4 more guards because these doors weren't guarded, or these doors were, open to breach. Invest in your physical security. You're investing in cyber. People rarely or often forget about physical security, and it's becoming increasingly an avenue for attack. And in my opinion, you don't truly know you're secure unless you test it. You you may think you're secure, or you may think you're insecure. Put it to the test. Try it. Understand where your weaknesses are, so you can stop them. So you can mitigate your weaknesses or mitigate your risks, and understand your posture as an organization to make it better. Thank you very much. That's me. I'm happy to take any questions. I'm unsure how this is going to work over Zoom, but if there's a mic, then
Warren, thank you so much. Warren is a very brave man. I was at Cyber Isle last week, and I had a video with sound as part of my presentation. And so I feel your nervousness, Warren. So well done, mate, and I'm glad the gods looked down on you. Unfortunately, we're a little bit up against time, but hopefully, I know at the bottom of the presentation, the various contact details were there. So at least people know where to find you, and hopefully can touch base with you offline.
yeah. Please do. If you have any questions or concerns about my contact details have hopefully been shared, reach out. I'm quite an approachable guy. I may look like a scary guy breaking into your buildings and stealing your servers, but I'm not.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, Warren. Warren Houghton from Pentest Partners.